15-minute warm-up to lead the body into another yoga class from this module or any kind of physical activity. Coming to a comfortable seated position, eyes closed, palms facing upward, we're just going to begin by setting our intention for this class, grounding down in the moment, bringing your hands to heart center, and rubbing them together, creating warmth between your hands like you're trying to make a fire within your body, and then putting the palms gently over your eyes, spreading that warmth down your face and to anywhere in the body that needs a little extra love as we focus for the next 15 minutes. And coming into Baddha Konasana, butterfly, you're going to bring the bottoms of your feet together, heels together, pulling it in close towards your groin, letting those knees fall down towards the mat, shoulders open, nice long straight spine, and then slowly just begin to fold forward, bringing your nose to the toes if you can, or gaze lifted a little bit so that you're just leaning slightly over those legs, opening the hips a little bit more. Maybe you put some towels or block underneath the hips if your knees aren't all the way down, but just feeling into that stretch, pushing your legs out, rounding your shoulders, and coming down. This time you're trying to bring your nose to those heels, so really rounding out that spine. You can maybe bend your elbows and use those to work your legs down a little bit. You can straighten your arms out in front of you and get a nice side body stretch. So crawling the fingers over to one side and then the other. Just feeling any areas of the body that feel any tension and bringing the breath there. Inhale, coming up one vertebra at a time. Bringing those legs to a comfortable position, and then we're going to go for another side body stretch. Inhale the arms up, exhale that left arm comes down, elbow down to the mat, right arm reaches overhead, the gaze follows, and switching sides, taking little micro movements, and inhale back up. Straightening out the legs for Paschimottanasana, feet flexed, inhale the arms come up, exhale to forward fold. Grabbing the toes, or maybe the outer edges of the feet, maybe the shins, perhaps grabbing a strap and putting it behind those feet as a modified version, but just keeping that spine straight. Inhale, we lift and lengthen, arms come up, and then pointing the toes. Exhale, we come back down. So we can think about getting our nose to our knees, but often then we start to round our spine. So if we lift our gaze to our toes and really straighten the back before we come up all the way, and bringing that right foot up into a half butterfly, or perhaps taking the right foot, crossing it over the left hip, just to add a little bit more stretch in that outer side hip before we fold forward. And just remembering this isn't a competition, so knowing and listening to your body, use a strap if you need. Foot placement, if your foot is closer to the knee, it's going to be a bit more of a stretch on that outer hip. So just finding whatever area is comfortable for you. And when you're ready, following your breath, we release that foot down and switch sides. Exhale to forward fold, keeping that bottom leg engaged, the foot flexed, keeping our spine straight as we're folding forward, getting into that outer hip, opening up the body, keeping that spine nice and straight. Gaze lifts as we inhale, arms come up, releasing that leg down to the side, shaking out both of your legs, feeling that warmth, that tingling as we cross our feet, moving over our ankles into a tabletop position. So neutral spine, shoulders over the wrists. Exhale, we push the mat away from us, round those shoulders for a scared cat. Inhale, the gaze lifts, the belly drops to the mat for cow. Following your own breath of inhales and exhales as we work into those shoulders, that upper back, Exhale, pushing the mat away from us. Inhale, letting that belly drop to the floor. Creating a nice fluid movement, following our own breath. And then meeting back in a neutral spine, just begin to rock back towards your heels and forward, working into those wrists, warming them up, flipping one over and the next. So now the tops of our hands are down on the mat and still doing that same rocking, finding whatever feels good to us, maybe flipping the hands out, fingertips to the side, rocking right to left, flipping the hands over once again, backs of the hands, fingertips pointed together, finding these areas of movement, working into your wrists, and then meeting me back in that tabletop position. Inhaling that right arm high to the sky, gaze follows, and thread it through the other side, resting on that outer right shoulder. Right cheek comes down to the mat, left hand at a 90-degree angle, twisting out the spine, stretching that outer shoulder. And your next inhale, meeting me back in tabletop position. Inhale, gaze lifts, left arm goes to the sky. Exhale, sweep it through, coming down to the outer left shoulder, left cheek down on the mat. Remembering to breathe, using that top arm to push and twist even further, and then coming back to tabletop position, tucking the toes under, pushing back into our first downward dog of the practice. The hips lift, shoulders engaged, fingers spread wide, legs bent, and just begin pedaling at the feet. So keeping one leg bent at a time as we try to bring the other heel to the ground. Switching back and forth, opening up the backs of those legs, finding whatever bend in the knee is comfortable for you. And then on our next inhale, coming high on your toes, walking those feet up to your hands and releasing into a forward fold. Inhale, come up to standing. Exhale, arms down by your side, Tadasana. Inhale, lift the arms. Exhale, forward fold, hinging at the waist, spine straight, taking as much of a bend in our knees as we need to. Inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. Exhale, step back to a high plank, bringing your knees down, then your chest and your chin. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, push back, downward facing dog. Finding your breath here, keeping those shoulders engaged, that nice straight line all the way up as we inhale our right leg high to the sky. Exhale, bending it, opening up the hip, circling out the hip, taking a few turns one side, and then switching sides, just feeling into that openness that we've created. Maybe letting the leg fall, flipping the dog, but just opening up that hip, really feeling into it before we sweep it between our hands, dropping that back knee to the ground. Inhale, come up, front lunge. Arms directly overhead, making sure that our knee doesn't go above our toes. Really feeling into that back hip as we open. Maybe we can take a little micro bend in the back to open it up a little bit further. And then dropping that left arm down to the mat and opening up that right side body for a nice stretch, twist. And we can stretch our hamstring here if we can reach it. Perhaps grab a strap and you can grab that back leg for an extra hamstring stretch. And then untwisting, bringing both those hands down and pushing back, straightening out that front leg for half split stretch. So we can keep our foot flexed for a little bit more of a stretch here, keeping that back straight, coming up on our fingertips, or perhaps placing our hands on our shins, just finding an area that's comfortable for us, maybe taking little micro movements, little bounces to get you deeper. And moving back into that front lunge. Right leg comes back to meet the left. Knees, chest, chin. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, push back, downward facing dog. Finding our breath before we inhale that left leg high to the sky. Creating that straight line. And then bending the knee, opening up the hip. Really feeling that whole side of the body. And starting in on some hip circles, so taking it one direction for 5, really following our breath. And then switching the direction for 5 more, with whatever speed you need. Inhale, sweeping that foot through to the front. Inhale, come up for a front lunge. So our back knee is down, our toes can be hooked or unhooked, and then just dipping down into those hips, making sure that the knee isn't going in front of the toes. There's a nice straight line from the knee down to the ankle, but really moving into those hips, bringing that right arm down, twisting that left arm up and to the back. Once again, trying a hamstring stretch here if that's available to you, perhaps using a strap, or just like I'm doing, some pulses. Circling that left arm down. Taking one last inhale here to open up the body, bringing the hands on opposite sides of the feet and coming back for half split stretch. So straightening out that leg, finding that the flexed foot or the pointed foot, whatever feels better for that hamstring to open up. Spine straight. Gaze towards the toes or just in front of them to help elongate that spine. And then moving back through that front lunge before we bring that left leg to meet the right. Knees still down. Exhale, knees, chest, chin, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog, thighs come off the mat. Exhale, push back, downward facing dog, rolling over the toes or finding whatever's comfortable for you, keeping your legs bent or straight, coming high on your toes and walking those feet up towards your hands, taking another forward fold, knees nice and bent. Inhale, come up to standing. And exhale, releasing those arms down. Inhale, the arms back up, clasping the hands, pointer fingers come out. Exhale, side body stretch, just bending over to the left side. Using the core, coming back up through center. Finding your breath before we exhale down to the other side. Making sure we're not jutting our hip out, but really taking a bend in that upper body, all of the areas that we've been opening up. Exhale, swan dive down to the mat, hinging at the waist for forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift and lengthen. Bending those knees, grabbing opposite elbows and just shaking it out. Maybe nodding your head yes or no. Bouncing. Shaking those shoulders back and forth, feeling that weightlessness, taking as much of a bend in your knees as you need so that your stomach is resting on the tops of your thighs to really just let the shoulders hang. Feeling all of the work that we've done in firing up the body. Bringing those fingertips down to the ground, once again, keeping that bend in your knees to allow it, walking over to the right-hand side. Finding that stretch as we move through center, over to the left-hand side. Breathing through the body, meeting me back in center. Inhale, arms come up. Exhale, cactus arms, 90-degree angles with those arms. Micro bend in the back, gaze lifts. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, release. Thanks for joining.